Here's our first assignment, okay? So they come into class very first day, and this is our first assignment.
You unlock this door with the key of imagination. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of sound. A dimension of sight. A dimension of mind. You're moving into a land of both shadow and substance, of things and ideas. You just crossed over into the twilight zone.
So it's a good thing we have reruns on television, so the students know what this is. Okay, so here's their first assignment. Their very first assignment. We impose a 48-hour news and information, really news blackout on all the students in the class. No news, no weather, no sports, 48 hours. Can't get news from any source, family, friends, or anybody. We create a deficit in their lives. Most of these students, cross-section now we're teaching of the university, are not really what I would term avid news consumers. Although we learn a lot about their consumption habits. There are a lot of myths, I think, and we've learned a lot. So they don't think this is a big deal. They say, okay, what's the big deal? And they find this extraordinarily hard and intense. Some of them get up and tell us by the second night they can't sleep. They're very anxious that something's happening in the world and they don't know about it. They carry umbrellas around campus. One student got a bad cold, blamed me for that last semester. The experience resembled withdrawal. It made me realize how dependent I am on having instant access to the news. The news blackout has been absolutely dreadful. I had to feel the window in my room to figure out what the weather was like outside. So here's the other side. Minority student says, this is great. No bad news? Wow. I don't have to worry about anything. Ignorance is bliss. And we were surprised at this reaction. We have been surprised. These are students who are representing every discipline. We have physics majors. I mean, physics, people who have taken the toughest course at the university, and they say, I feel by far that this has been the hardest task throughout my years at Stony Brook. This past semester, we had people who said, I feel like an anxious bird in a cage. We had a young woman from a very impoverished household who said, I never felt as uneducated in my life as I did in the 48 hours. My favorite from last semester was a young woman who said the following. She said, I actually had to look out my window when I woke up to see what it was like outside. It was almost impossible to go on the computer and not look at the top 10 stories of the day on CNN.com. It was even harder for me not to check if Lindsay Lohan was still sober on TMZ.com. Students realize how ubiquitous the news is. It's all around them. Their families talk about it. One young woman, an immigrant from Greece, said it made her realize how little she had to talk to her mother about, because all they talk about across the breakfast table every day is the news. And for 48 hours, they stared at each other. And it was very disconcerting. So we start that way. We start with this kind of deficit. First lesson, foundation. First half of the course, a lot of foundation material. We didn't start this way. This has evolved. I started with the idea, okay, I'm going to try to teach students how to find reliable news. And what did I discover after a semester or two? First, they had to find the news. I assumed they could find the news. It's hard to find news. And so in this digital world that we live in which we're getting flooded with information, 24/7, around the clock, the first lesson we teach is you got to know what neighborhood you're in. Before you can judge the reliability of news, you have to know if you're in the news neighborhood, in propaganda, in publicity, in advertising, in entertainment, or you're in this world of unfiltered and unmediated information. And so we have now enriched that part of the course and spent a couple of weeks on this, really 2 weeks. And we asked these two questions. What is journalism and who is a journalist? And we need this as a foundation for this course or it's not going to work. And we use this grid. This is an evaluation grid we've developed in class that looks at the differences between all of these neighborhoods in lots of ways. The goal, the client, the methods, the practitioners, the outcome. And we have them go in and wade in and look for examples that demonstrate the differences in these neighborhoods. And we want to make sure that they can find them for themselves. And so the first part, and they have to fill out this grid with examples. And you can see what the definitions up there in terms of the goals of these kind of neighborhoods are. And so we give them that kind of baseline information, and they begin to get it, and then we say, you know, it's getting harder and harder. the lines on this grid. You know, we can define propaganda, we define advertising, we define entertainment. The lines are blurring intentionally in some cases, and it's harder and harder for news consumers to be able to differentiate. Okay? So, we give them examples, and we say, okay, now we've given you these tools, now you tell us what neighborhood you're in. We give them 6 clips on YouTube about the Iraq War, and we say, for each of these clips, tell us what neighborhood you're in. I am going to play you one clip, and then I'm going to ask you to use your clicker and tell me what neighborhood, what news, information, propaganda, publicity, etc., what neighborhood we're in. Here's the clip. We show them. I'll cut it off. Okay, and this goes on for about a minute, very much like this, okay? So here's the question for you. This clip is an example of unfiltered information, propaganda, news, publicity, or advertising. We've given students these definitions, and now we say, tell us. So go to your clicker and pick a number and hit send. Okay, John? Okay. So the answer is unfiltered information, right, everybody? That's wrong. That's wrong. Why is it wrong? Who can tell me why it's wrong? Yes?
Produced by multinational forces, government propaganda.
Absolutely. The first thing and the most important thing that comes on that screen is who's producing it. It's produced by MNF Iraq. That's the multinational force website. That's run by the Army. This information violates one of the 3 core principles of what is news, which I'm going to mention. And because it violates one of those principles, it can't be unfiltered information. It has been filtered, and it can't be news. You could argue that it's propaganda. You might even argue it's publicity. It enhances the image of the Army. But it's not unfiltered information. And so this is on YouTube. And MNF has a whole channel on YouTube, by the way. Our Defense Department and our Army. So we tell the students how they have to analyze that, how they have to be careful. John, you want to hit the next one? Okay. And then, you want to go back? Did we? I think we missed one. Yeah. No, we didn't. We show them bloggers. We take them onto bloggers. This is an example of a blogger who is a fashion blogger who really is a representative for one of the department stores. So he is not an independent source at all. And we have students go and take a look at, again, how the lines are blurring. We show them video news releases. Many of you have seen these video news releases. This is a video news release that ran on a dozen channels, this one in Phoenix. And it's about what you should buy during Christmas. And it has an expert come on, and they tell you not to buy an iPod because hackers can get in there, and there are pedophiles who are hackers and all kinds of stuff. It turns out that this has been paid for and produced by Panasonic. And in each case, we tell the students how you can spot the difference. What are the warning signs? What you should look for to make sure you're in the right neighborhood.